Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan, I'm the Mood Read Queen, and on today's video, we are talking about my favorite books of the year. Yes, I normally write this gargantuan Goodreads review of the year, and that was before I had a booktube though. And these straps keep falling off. That was before I had a booktube. So now I'm like, do I really need to write all that? Or can I just say all of it? I don't know. I'll probably write it. But I went to go write it, and guess what? My little, it's 2022 on Goodreads. And they do it every single year. Well, it's not there for this year. I was like, where's my 2022 on Goodreads? I can't write a review of the year if you don't have the template out yet. Somebody's slacking. But anyway, so I'm going to go over my top books of the year, but we're going to do this in two ways. And then we're also going to go over my stats, I guess. I don't know, guys. I don't really do a whole statty things, but we're going to go over it and, share some stuff. So I have two ways I'm going to share my top books of the year. One is, this bracket that I started in June. It was actually one of the things that inspired me to do BookTube, because I'd been watching it for a few months at that point, maybe 3 or 4 months, and I saw this bracket that one of my friends shared, and I was like, ooh, I should do that. And it was you pick one favorite book from each month. So I'm going to show you the bracket, and we'll kind of talk about what is happening on the bracket and how I feel about it, because it's each month you pick your favorite book. But, I'm a mood reader. Many of you might be mood readers. And sometimes you get on a streak of really excellent books. And then sometimes you're these books aren't that good. And so choosing favorite books from June and July, super hard for me. Read so many good books during those months. Choosing a favorite book from September, super easy. September was a rough month. So, let's be honest, last year was just rough in general, last semester. But anyway, so I'm going to kind of share those, and then we'll talk about how many of those are actually my favorite books of the year, and then how many of them are not making the cut. Because obviously, I usually do top 10 books of the year, but I had some really, really good ones this year, and let's just do honorable mentions. Let's just give people the benefit of the doubt. And by people, I mean books, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so I've got my chart, and I will probably put that. My computer has been really iffy recently. I'm a little afraid it's going to mess up. Okay, so let's look at this chart. So it'll be over here. I'll kind of go through it. So I filled out January through June in June, or right after, through the end of June. And then I read a bunch of great books in July, and I was like, what am I going to do? Because it's so hard. Okay, so my favorite book in January of 2022 was All the Fuels by Olivia Dade, which, where are you, Olivia? I pulled everything out and then I lost it. Okay, All the Fuels by Olivia Dade. Olivia Dade owns my soul. Okay, I love her. She writes beautiful representation. Both, and it's not, I was about to say, it's not all about representation. I think, usually that's an important part of any book, whatever kind of representation you're looking for. But I love this series. I don't know what the series is called, now that I think of it, but the first one's called Spoiler Alert. It lives back here with this one. All the Fuels is the second book, and the third book just came out in November. I have not yet read it because her books hurt so good, and they always end well, but it's called Shipwrecked. So anyway, All the Fuels, excellent book. You've got Alex. Alex is why am I talking about this? Whatever. I'm just going to go over it really quick. So Alex is an actor on a show, very Game of Thronesy. Alex has ADHD. Which is an important part of the story. He isn't always perceived well. His intentions aren't always seen well. And yeah, it's So he's just, misunderstood a lot. And then you've got Lauren, I believe Lauren. And Lauren is a former like ER, like psychologist or trauma therapist or something like that. And she's been asked by her cousin, who is the director, and he's involved in some way with the Gates of the God show that Alex is famous for. And so she becomes his minder, his like babysitter, basically. And it's this beautiful story about trauma and perceptions, and they're just amazing. And he has, Alex ruined me for so many people. So good. So this was my favorite book of January. So that was like pretty much like not that hard to choose that book. Then in February, I chose The Other Miss Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. And the reason why, at the time I was reading a bunch of Julia Quinn books, and I really enjoyed it. There were pirates, man. I mean, sort of pirates. Okay, they were sort of pirates. And this series is a series that is like a prequel series to the kind of original Bridgerton books. And I love me some Julia Quinn. I know that people don't talk about her as much, I feel like, as I thought they did, as a kind of casual fan who then started reading more of her books. But, you know, I really like her. So, it's a good book. I don't remember anybody's names. There's a guy named Alex in there, maybe? And some other girl. It's good. It's the third book in that 4-book prequel series. And it's well done. But I didn't read a lot of, like, epic books in February, so it wasn't that hard to choose. In March, I chose The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker. This book did a number on me. It is about, what is his name? And I apologize. I'm still a little sick. I mean, such is life. I don't know. So, The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker. I was really wanting some good plus-size representation, especially after reading, you know. And because she does such a great job that you're like, where's more of it? Where's more of it? And so this one's actually a gay romance. And you've got Henry. How did I forget his name? Henry, and then what is the Reed? Henry and Reed. So Henry's boyfriend of like multiple years dumps him because he's not taking care of himself and he's like fat, whatever. And so Henry's like heartbroken, and then he decides he's going to go do something about it. So he goes to the gym, which I am not a huge fan of. I'm going to go to the gym. But it works. He really likes his trainer, Reed. Reed likes him. And it's not about the gym. It's about Henry realizing that he's worth it and that other people are worth his time. And it's just I cried, I'm pretty sure, when I read this book. I loved it so much, and there's a little short sequel for it as well. But this book, like, rocked me. Which I had sort of, like, walls up when I read it, because I was like, don't start talking about the gym. Don't start doing that. So anyway, so that was my favorite book of March. My favorite book of April was The Fae King's Curse by Jamie Schlosser. Sorry, Jamie. And let me tell you, even though this cover is highly questionable, like, this book series, especially book 1, I liked them, I think, in the order that I read them. So, like, book 1 was the best. Book 2 was, like, not as good, but still enjoyable. Book 3 was like, ooh, it's a little cringe, but I'm still going. And book 4, you're like, oh, honey, no, but I'm going to stick with you. And then I just finished reading, actually, 2 more books that take place in the same world. And I'm not sure how I feel about them. But anyway, Fae King's Curse, excellent book. I, like, think about this book all the time. And maybe it's not as good as I think it was, but I think it was dope. It's about, I should remember these people's names. There's like I keep wanting to say Harper and Rin, but that is from a different book. And I never remember their names. Yes, thank you, Goodreads, for remembering. So Fae King's Curse, tell me their names. Kyrian and what's her face? Does it not say? I hate when the summaries don't say their names and then I go to look and I'm like, what's their name? What are their names? No idea. Did I say their names? Quinn. Kyrian and Quinn. I don't know why I can't remember their names ever. But Kyrian is a Fae prince. He's blind. There's this curse. And he will stay blind until he meets his mate. But the hitch is that he's low-key in love with this human woman that he meets when he's a child and she's a child. But he grows up faster than she does, and because Fae time is different. It's kind of cool how this world works. And so when she's 18, she's going to go to college, and he's like, that's a long time to be away, because it's a really long time for him, like hundreds of years. And so, I think it's hundreds of years. Yeah. And it's just like not good. So he takes her back with him, and they kiss. And if you kiss someone who's not your mate, the curse is like forged for good. Like that's it. And then there's some things that happen, and she's like, I'm gonna fix this because you deserve to have your sight. And he's like, I can live without my sight. I've been living without it for thousands of years. Who I can't live without is you. It's so good. And I know this cover is crap, but it's so good. You have no idea. Okay. So then that was my favorite book of April. Favorite book of May was Cress by Marissa Meyer. I really liked this book. It was I think my favorite of the series of the Lunar Chronicles. I really did like the Lunar Chronicles, but it all kind of fell apart in book 4. And then all the extra content, normally I love extra content, but it just didn't do it for me in those books as much. I really liked Scarlet, which is when the story picked up quite a bit, but Cress won me over because it's a retelling of Rapunzel, and I am just a sucker for Rapunzel. It's such a good story. So I liked Cress, but it was one of those like, I didn't read a lot of good books in May. I guess I'll do Cress. One of those situations. And then in June is when my life changed forever. And I've talked about this book so many times, and you guys are going to be like, oh my God, she's talking about this book again? Girl, get a life. And to that I say, no thank you. So my favorite book of June was Better Than People by Roan Barish. I love this book. I love the second book too. I just don't have it on paperback yet. In paperback. This book is so dope. Like, this book, changed my whole life. This book made me think about getting pets. This book made me like, oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it. It's a freaking epic, beautiful story that I've talked about so many times, and I will shut up about it. But if you want to hear me talk about it for longer, you should watch either my Roan Barish deep dive video, or I think I also I put it in books that will cure your seasonal depression, which is obviously misunderstanding seasonal depression. Like, it's not going to cure it, but might make you feel better. I don't know. So anyway, Roan Barish, my fave. Oh my God. Anyway, so that was the favorite book of June. So let's look at the breakdown now. So now put this over here. So in the breakdown, so January goes against February. So all the feels goes against the other Miss Bridgerton, and all the feels wiped it out because duh, it's a flawless book. And then the other Miss Bridgerton went up against The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker. The Weight of It All knocked me out, so that knocks out Other Miss Bridgerton. So then we had All the Feels versus The Weight of It All, and I chose The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker. I don't know. It's so hard to choose these, right? It's kind of a ridiculous kind of thing to try to figure out. So that was The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker was the winner. The winner of the first 3 months. So then April, we had The Fake King's Curse by Jamie Schlosser. Went up against Cress. Obviously, Fake King's Curse won because it's so good. And then Cress went up against Better Than People, and nothing can beat Better Than People. So Better Than People won. And then in the fight between The Fake King's Curse and Better Than People won. So then we had these two hella gay romances that are very down to earth and sweet and precious and also spicy, but just So they went up against each other and better than people. I don't know if it was because I just finished this book, but it like wiped out the weight of it all, and I was like, okay. So Better Than People won the first half of the year, okay? Now, this is where the hard part came in, because I didn't fill out the chart until yesterday. And for you guys, that's like maybe a few days away. But so in July, my favorite book was Best Laid Plans by Jerome Parrish. It is also the sequel to Better Than People. And I love that book. I freaking love that book. It's so good. And it like, okay. So then in August, my favorite book was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. And I love Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I am not like Chloe almost at all. I'm more like her sister Eve. But weirdly, I loved Chloe's book more. Book 2 is not good, but books 1 and 3 are like dope. They're so good. And I just really love this book, and it hurt me, but like in a good way. You know, it's just like you feel seen. It does representation so well, and so does Olivia Dade, where it's like, how do I say this? I ranted about this the other day, and I think it's so important to find balance with any sort of representation, not just like, you know, plus size rep or whatever. Because I think you can mention it too much and it can be too whiny. But I think that you can also not mention it enough and then you forget. And I don't think we should forget. I mean, any representation, right? So anyway, and of course we have a Black author here, Talia Hibbert. Ugh, it's so good. It's so good. So that was my favorite book of August. And then September came around and I read The Hating Game. The Hating Game. I listened to it. It was so good. And I haven't watched the movie yet. I'm kind of afraid. Maybe I won't. But this book surprised me. I didn't see it coming. The tension was not where I thought it was going to be, but it was perfect. You know? Like, it's not whether they were going to get together or whether they even liked each other, but like how they were going to figure it out, which I really appreciated that. And I think it made me cry also. I cry a lot these days. Because it's just so real. I've never been in publishing, but it's like she thinks, what's her face? Lucy thinks one thing is happening, but something else is actually happening, and Josh knows. And he lets her think the worst of him while he tries to figure out what to do, and it is just wonderful. I loved it. I loved it so much. And in fact, this is making me doubt my favorites, but anyway. So I guess, you know what, we'll just go it this way. So in the fight between Best Laid Plans by Jerome Parrish and Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Best Laid Plans beat her out. I don't know. And then in the fight between The Hating Game and Get a Life, Chloe Brown, The Hating Game won. And then I was like, how am I going to choose between Best Laid Plans and The Hating Game? Like, this bracket stuff is not for me. So I ended up choosing Best Laid Plans. So then my favorite book in October was Dancing at Midnight by Julia Quinn. I really loved this book. It had so many shades of other books that I've loved by Julia Quinn, and it was just fun. And I don't really have much more to say about it than that. I should, because I'm putting it on my favorite, like I ended up on the bracket, but it's not in my top 10. So we'll talk about that. Then in November, I read Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. November was a rough month. I didn't really have anything I loved. So I put that in there because I actually really enjoyed that book quite a bit, and I found it relatable. And I do not recommend that series. I'll just straight up do not recommend the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey. But that couple in Tools of Engagement I actually found quite compelling. And then the last book, I read Jane Eyre in December, and I love the story of Jane Eyre. I have done since I was like 16, 17 years old. And I had to reread it for a paper I was writing. And there's just something so timeless about this story. I mean, there are things that don't age well, obviously. But I love this story so much. And this is my favorite copy of it. It's the original Broadway edition from the 2001, I think, Broadway production. So I said that was my favorite book of December. Now, this is where it gets like weird though, okay? So, it doesn't get weird, actually, hold on. So, October, Dancing at Midnight, and then November, Tools of Engagement, Dancing at Midnight won. Tools of Engagement, Jane Eyre won. And then Jane Eyre beat out Dancing at Midnight. And then Jane Eyre had to go up against Best Laid Plans, and Best Laid Plans was like, nah, bitch, and it won. So then we had Better Than People versus Best Laid Plans, and I said, nope, I'm not choosing. I'm not doing it. No, because they're basically like volume 1 and 2. I was like, in no way am I doing this. So anyway, if you want my favorite book of the year, I don't have one. I have 2, probably. I don't know. But I really love a lot of these books. So those are 12 books, right? So this is my, my handy bracket, okay? But that bracket is not actually my list of favorite books. So some of them are. But some of them were just in the wrong month, right? So the ones that are the same. So Hating Game, definitely a favorite book of the year. 100%. I love this book. I will reread this book. I cannot wait to start, I'm going to let myself reread more in 2023, and I'm going to reread a lot of the books I listened to the audio of and do some tabbing. I'm really excited about that. So this was definitely a favorite book of the year. Get a Life, Chloe Brown was also a favorite book of the year. Loved it. Red is where is this man? This sort of shaggy haired, buff artist type who helps you save cats from trees. I apparently need to save cats from trees. Better Than People was a favorite book of the year. All the Feels was a favorite book of the year. Okay. But then there were some other ones that couldn't show up on the bracket because they weren't my favorite book of the month. But that doesn't mean I didn't love them. Anyway, confusing. So ones that didn't or weren't able to show up on my bracket. Oh, Fake King's Curse was also on there. So Fake King's Curse was also a favorite book of the year. The Weight of It All by N.R. Walker was also a favorite book of the year. And then this is where we sort of diverge from my bracket. So I also loved The Sum of All Kisses by Julia Quinn. This was my favorite Julia Quinn I read this year. I think so anyway. This book there's really good disability rep in it. You have someone who was injured in a duel a few years before. He experiences incredible guilt as a result of what happened, but also he is in constant pain. He has chronic pain. And I loved this book. It was amazing, and I think about it a lot. So it is in the Smythe Smith Quartet. I think it's book 3. I can't remember. But it's definitely worth it. 100%. Love this book. So that's definitely a favorite book of the year. And then I also have 2 other books in my top 10. One is called The Black Prince by Ariana Nash. I read this book in July, and I was reading it at the same time that I was reading Roan Parrish books, like Best Laid Plans and Better Than People and Lights on Knockbridge Lane and all of those. And I just love these books. They're very different. They're gay fantasy books. they aren't romances. There is romance in them, but there's about so many other things too. And they're really hard reads. There's a lot of trauma. Rape is a thing. Abuse is a thing. Physical, emotional. They're hard reads, but they're not, like, they're worth your time. And I have a whole video about the Silk and Steel series by Ariana Nash, and this is book 4 in that series. It was incredibly compelling and such an interesting perspective, because the first 3 books are about the same couple, basically. And then the 4th book is about the brother of one of the other characters, one of the main characters. And his story, even though he only gets 1 book, it's still as compelling and still is beautiful. And I loved it. And then I also read Full Volume. I can't remember the author of Full Volume. It's on, I read it on Lezen Comics. I read it, the entirety of it this year. It is completed. We're waiting on a side story. And I freaking love this. It's a webtoon, but I count it, right? It's like a manga. It's like graphic novel. This, I avoided it for months and months and months because it was like kind of teasing me. And I just recently, I guess within the last 8 months or so, started reading more webtoons. And so I discovered it and I started reading it and I was like, cause it was like pulling me in, like visually. I saw a lot on Instagram, and it is, I mean, not spicy. It's got some stuff in there, but it is also just like the sweetest kind of down to earth story. I mean, it's weird to say that because it's about a cam boy who uses like all these, toys, and all these like situations. And then this author who's his neighbor. And the cam boy is a fan of the author. The author is a fan of the cam boy. They accidentally meet. They live in the same apartment complex. But it's just about meeting people and opening yourself up to people, and being afraid, and how do you make time for someone else in your life, and taking back control of your life from people who maybe have had too much of a say. It's so good. I have reread it like 3 times. I love it. In fact, I probably could have counted it like as 2 or 3 books this year, but I try not to recount books that much within the same year. And anyway, so those are my top 10. Now, I do have some honorable mentions. And because I read a lot of really good books this year. So, honorable mentions in case you're interested. What Happens in London, by Julia Quinn. Can't see that very well. This is the 2nd book in one of her series. I don't remember which one. It doesn't really matter. I love this book. The witty banter, flawless. So good. It was my second favorite Julia Quinn book that I read this year. His name was Harry Valentine, which I realize is like a terrible name, but like, I don't care. I don't care because I love this book. And her name is Olivia, and they just have like this whole, I'm going to reread these books. I'm going to reread them. So that's definitely an honorable mention. And then where did I put Jane Eyre? She fell on the ground. Jane Eyre was also an honorable mention. I didn't put her in the favorite book of the year because I've read her before, and I feel like a favorite book of the year needs to be a one I read for the first time that year. Because I read this for the first time in 2012, 13. So it's been almost a decade, and maybe a decade. And I love this book, but I don't know. I mean, it's a great book, but I've read it before, so it seems kind of like weird to put that on there. So then other honorable mentions. Blindsided by Amy Dawes. I loved this book. It's a sports romance. He is a soccer. Is he soccer? Or rugby? Soccer, I think. He's soccer or rugby. I don't remember because there's another one that I read right after I read this one where it was the other sport. I'm not sure. I want to say it's soccer though. He's like this I think it's soccer. He's a Scottish soccer player. She is a plus size seamstress. They both are ginger. It's hella cute. She's a virgin. He doesn't believe her. They do a whole let me teach you about sex thing. Oh my god, it's so good. Then I also love The King's Spinster Bride by Ruby Dixon. This is my first Ruby Dixon. I read it based on a recommendation on BookTube. I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars at first, and I was like, no, you loved this book. It doesn't matter if like other people don't give it 5 stars. You want to give it 5 stars. So I did. And it's really good. It's 2 novellas in kind of a larger world, but you don't have to read the other books, and because they're like hella long. And this is like a pretty short book, but I felt like it was well done. I felt like the characters were well developed, and the plot was good, which sometimes doesn't happen in novellas. It's fantasy, it's sweet, and oh god, I love it. It's an older woman, younger man thing, which I have to be convinced to read those. That's societal stuff ingrained in me that I'm still working on, but I really loved it. Then I put Wings of the Night Prince by Alyssa Thorne. This is the 3rd book in her Wrath of the Fae series, or the Fae universe. I think she's calling it both. She is really expanding this universe. She's got an Ironwood series that it's a spinoff of the 3rd book, and there are 4 books in that series. I have enjoyed all of them, but I think that her highest peak was definitely book 3, and it was very ACOTAR-y, like very ACOTAR-y, and I was into it, and it was an easy read. Then Out of Nowhere by Rowan Parrish. I had to put this book on here because it wasn't a top 10 because I read so many other great books, but this book, it was really hard to read, really painful. You have a character who is like just experiences incredible amounts of internalized homophobia and self-hatred, and it's really hard because he's also so cruel to other people and himself, and it was just a beautiful book, and I loved it. Then I put At Your Age, Eve Brown, because Eve is my girl. I loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Eve is definitely more like me, for sure, and it was wonderful. And then Zinni by Rebecca Weatherspoon. I'm pretending that this is the 3rd book in the Brown Sisters because I loved it. And like Danny's book 2, not good. I wouldn't recommend, honestly. I'm sorry, Talia Hibbert. But Zinni she just fits right in with the Brown Sisters. It's really wonderful. It's about sort of a marriage of convenience, so she can inherit money and so can he. He's Scottish. Let's see. There's also pegging. Like, who knew, Who knew? But it was just really well done, and they practiced really good communication, and oh my god, I freaking loved it. It was so good. So anyway, those are my favorite books of 2022. And let me just turn this back a little bit. I read so many great books. Let me just share my stats with you real quick, because I think that you'll think this is interesting, or at least I think it's interesting. So, where are my stats? I normally in my classroom put manga, webtoon, graphic novels in the like genre they belong, but when I was going through my Goodreads, I just put them in one thing. So I need to work on that. But I read 31 manga, webtoon, graphic novels. Some of them were rereads, but for the most part they weren't. I read 18 historicals, which isn't that much. I thought I'd read more than that, but I'm going to work on that. This is the year that I finished reading all of Julia Quinn's books. Like, this is the year. I read 64 realistic fiction books. Many of those were Rowan Parrish books. I read so many of those. A lot of them were like Christmassy books that I read in the middle of March. Don't ask me what I was thinking. And then I didn't get the Christmas spirit till late, I guess. And then I also read a lot of like figure skating books because the Olympics. And I listened to a ton of my go-to audiobook journey has been with romantic, realistic romances, because those are some of the easiest to listen to, especially when I was just very overwhelmed with life. I only read 9 classic books, but honestly, that's not bad, guys. Because I had of course, the class that I wouldn't shut up about. I read 45 fantasy books. And then 3, I put nonfiction / poetry. Because it was sad. I only read 2 poetry collections this year. That just seems wrong. Like, I could have sworn I read more, but then I was going back and counting and I didn't. So, that's 170 books. And in case you're wondering what that means, page-wise, 170 books is, where are you? Oh, wow. That's not helping me at all. Hold on. I've lost it. I've lost my brain and... Okay, 170 books is 43,705 pages, which I feel pretty good about. So, my goal at the beginning of the year was 130 books. I hit that in like August or September. No, I think it was in October. And I was like, no, I hit it and then I changed it to 150. And then I hit 150 and I was like, you know what? Let's just keep going. So my low key goal was 165. And I got to 170 and I'm so proud of myself. I read a lot of novellas. Some books were like 60 pages. Not a lot, but a few. But also I read a lot of fan fiction that I don't count. I read a lot of webtoons that aren't on Goodreads. So I feel justified in the way that I count books. I feel pretty good about it. But yeah, it was a great year for reading. Just thinking about my favorite books reminds me of all of the great times that I had. The fall semester was rough, guys. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I was talking to a friend and I was like, there are whole chunks of that time that I don't remember. I don't remember. But I think good things are coming in 2023, and I'll be talking probably next week about some of my plans for 2023 in terms of reading. I want to be more purposeful, but still mood read, because that's the whole point. But I read so many great books, and I've realized, I think I've realized my potential as a reader, and audiobooks. Oh my gosh. I should have actually put the stats for how many audiobooks I listened to. I think it was around somewhere 50 to 60, which in years past, the number has been 0, maybe 1. So that's huge. Audiobooks opened up a whole new world for me, and that's the reason I was able to read 170 books. I would not have been able to do that without audiobooks, and I'm really excited to do that. I think I listen to roughly, if on average, probably about an audiobook a week, because there's 52 weeks in a year, so about an audiobook a week, and that's been great. That's been awesome, and so I definitely want to keep up that practice. I mostly listen to rom-coms. I have listened to some fantasy. I want to see what historical romance sounds like on there, but I'm just so pumped. So I hope that your 2022 reading was all that you wanted it to be, and if it's not, and if it wasn't, start thinking about, we're already in the new year. What do you want this reading year to look like for you? And, what plans do you have? So that's it. Thanks for sticking around and talking with me, or listening to me going on about my favorite books of the year. I loved it. It was just thinking about them makes you want to reread them. Like right now, I'm let's get out the Fae King's Curse. Let's go. Let's read the whole series all over again. But I'm not going to do that. Maybe I will. I don't know. I gotta finish some series that I started last year too. So that's it. Thank you for sticking around. I will see you next time. Bye.